Role of digital technologies in education, the focus of the seminar and exhibition at IIT Madras on the eve of the two-day education working group meeting in the southern Indian city. I'm Manmohan Bhattacharya. Let's get started with the top stories. In an address to both sessions of Parliament, President Draupadi Murmu says through its G20 presidency, India is trying to find collective solutions to the current global challenges in collaboration with other G20 member countries. It says G20 meetings are being held across the country as the government does not want to limit G20 to just one diplomatic program. Economic Survey 2022-23 deals with the issue of crypto asset regulation, says it has recently moved up the policy agenda of many nations and international fora like OECD and G20 are discussing a globally coordinated approach to regulating crypto assets. The survey also terms G20 presidency a unique opportunity to promote India as a major tourism destination and push passenger travel and hotel occupancy rates. On the eve of the first G20 Education Working Group meeting in Chennai, IIT Madras organizes a seminar and exhibition on the role of technology in education. Deliberations take place on the use of digital technologies by G20 members to provide accessible, inclusive and equitable education and emerging technologies to provide skill education and training. Second and final day of the first G20 International Financial Architecture Working Group meeting in Chandigarh discusses managing global debt vulnerabilities, a global financial safety net and strengthening financial resilience through sustainable capital flows with the aim of addressing multiple challenges faced by vulnerable countries. Two-day Science 20 Inception meeting concludes in Puducherry. G20 delegates welcome India's 100-page proposal for pursuit of disruptive science. President Draupadi Murmu addressed both houses of Parliament on the first day of the budget session, where she said that through the G20 presidency, India is attempting to find collective solutions to the current global challenges in collaboration with other G20 countries, and India is hosting G20 meetings in dozens of cities across India throughout the year as the government does not want to limit G20 to just one diplomatic program. Take a listen.
इस वर्ष भारत G20 जैसे प्रभावी समूह का नेतृत्व कर रहा है। वन अर्थ, वन फैमिली, वन फ्यूचर के मंत्र के साथ भारत की पूरी कोशिश है कि G20 के सदस्य देशों के साथ मिलकर मौजूदा वैश्विक चुनौतियों का सामूहिक समाधान तलाशा जाए। मेरी सरकार इसको सिर्फ एक डिप्लोमेटिक प्रोग्राम तक सीमित नहीं रखना चाहती, बल्कि पूरे देश के प्रयास से भारत के सामर्थ्य और संस्कृति को शोकेस करने का अवसर है। इसीलिए पूरे देश के दर्जनों शहरों में साल भर G20 की बैठकें आयोजित की जा रही है।
G20 also figures in the Economic Survey 2022-23 presented in Parliament today. In the context of the services sector, it says India attempted to improve its attractiveness as a destination for specialized tourism, and G20 presidency presents a unique opportunity for Indian travel and tourism industry to promote India as a major tourism destination. And this is what the Economic Survey said on crypto regulation efforts being made by the G20. The crypto asset market has been very volatile, with its total valuation swinging from almost $3 trillion in November 2021 to less than $1 trillion in January 2023. The volatility of the crypto asset ecosystem has brought to the forefront the fragile backing and governance problems, as well as the increasing complexity and non-transparency. With related financial stability risks rising, the issue of crypto asset regulation has recently moved up the policy agenda of many nations. International fora like OECD and G20 are discussing a globally coordinated approach to regulating crypto assets. On the eve of the first G20 Education Working Group meeting in Chennai, IIT Madras organized a seminar and exhibition on the role of technology in education. Deliberations took place on use of digital technologies by G20 members to provide accessible, inclusive and equitable education, and on emerging technologies to provide skill education and training. Participating member countries of the G20 displayed their EdTech and digital initiatives at an exhibition hosted by India at the IIT Madras Research Park. That exhibition is open till 2nd February. Here's more.
A seminar and exhibition highlighting the role of technology in education at IIT Madras set the stage for the first G20 Education Working Group meeting in Chennai. Professor V. Kamakoti, Director of IIT Madras and Chairman of its research park, termed the seminar as an icebreaker for the delegates.
We are now getting into a different format as we see here. We have a seminar and then an exhibition, and then tomorrow is the working group meeting. And what we do here today is basically, one is an icebreaker. We are able to start conversing with people. We get introduced to people. We also understand the concerns of different countries in the area of education.
At the sessions, deliberations took place on providing accessible and equitable education to K-12 learners or learners in the whole schooling ecosystem from kindergarten to the 12th standard, and on enabling high-quality higher education learning opportunities at scale. At the exhibition, several stalls of countries and other institutions showcased their education systems. Director of IIT Madras said he expects a huge turnout at the exhibition.
We have now 50 stalls here, and this is open today for the delegates who are attending this conference. From tomorrow and day after tomorrow, 2 days, we are going to keep it open for general public. We expect around 20,000 people to come and look at this.
Yet another session focused on emerging technologies to provide skill education and learning. Representatives of Saudi Arabia and UAE spoke about their pavilions and how technology is playing a key role in modern education.
We are showcasing some of the initiatives about technology in education in Saudi Arabia. There is a lot to explore about these platforms in public education and higher education. And these are both platforms and courses, and also study in Saudi platforms for international students.
Participation of UAE in the exhibition for educational technology, and we have 3 companies representing UAE today. Educational technology companies that are based in UAE, but also providing their services inside UAE and outside UAE.
Other delegates spoke on the first Education Working Group meeting and how it will help in setting the tone for further deliberations under the education track under India's G20 presidency. The first meeting of the G20 Education Working Group will be held on 1st and 2nd February. The 4 priority areas in the education realm for India as G20 president are ensuring foundational literacy and numeracy, tech-enabled learning, promoting lifelong learning, and strengthening research and innovation through richer collaboration and partnerships.
The icebreaker that is happening today, and then the sessions to follow, which will be 2 days of the Education Working Group meeting. With camera person S. Shankar, this is Shama Mishra for DD India, Chennai.
So, for perspective, we are being joined from Chennai by Professor Andrew Thangaraj, Professor Electrical Engineering with IIT Madras. Such a pleasure to have you, Professor Thangaraj, on India at G20. We know that tech-enabled education is the present and more so the future, but there are also challenges. For instance, there is a digital divide within G20 countries and between G20 countries. Some countries do not have digital resources at all, or very minimal resources they have. So were those challenges that tech-enabled learning poses and the countries' challenges that the countries face as far as ensuring tech-enabled learning is concerned discussed? And what was the consensus that was reached?
So this question came up during one of the panels, and we've had to deal with this issue quite a bit even inside India, right? So how do you make sure that everyone has a laptop and connectivity to the internet? And today it's possible largely inside India. The 4G networks are pretty good. They seem to work across the country, but then device could be a problem. And what we find very interesting is the colleges we associate with as local chapters. That's why I'm an NPTEL, for which I'm the coordinator. We are able to associate with colleges And then the colleges help us bridge the digital divide a little bit. They bring in, they provide the devices to students, they provide internet connectivity to students. So I think between 4G and hopefully 5G that's coming, and the colleges helping out, we are able to conquer the digital divide.
Okay, so those were certain ways in which the digital divide can be addressed. You know, having said that, on the other issues that were discussed, I understand that there was a discussion also on how incubated institutions can take forward the skilling process. We are aware that the government is coming up with a new skills strategy. There are also discussions taking place on having a skills harmonization framework. What were the discussions as far as this is concerned?
So skills is an area where I think the private sector has the maximum possible contribution. Generally, the public universities are good at theory-oriented degree courses, diploma courses, and that we do a fantastic job of. There is skills involved in that. It's not that, graduates should be divorced from skill, but nevertheless, I think companies can innovate. They can come up with very nice XR, AR, VR tools that people can use remotely and even in person to augment skill education. So quite a few discussions happened around skill, and I see the private sector leading the effort here.
Okay. Now, having said that, what were some of the best practices that were discussed which various countries can incorporate going forward?
So from my point of view, I think what tech offers, what digital online offers is equitable access. Wherever you are, whatever your background is, whether you had the money to go to a great school and coaching place, etc. for entrance exam, you can today access the top institutes in any country with online digital tech. So I think access is a fantastic thing that digital technology has enabled, and programs like SWAYAM, NPTEL, and IIT Madras's Bachelor of Science in Data Science, both of these are actually signatures of how access has changed education today. So SWAYAM, NPTEL, and all of these programs are possible because of the digital connect that is possible, and students have benefited across the country just because of these programs.
I heard the school education secretary say that Diksha platform has been showcased at the exhibition and that India is willing to offer it as a global public good. What was the kind of response that was there from the G20 delegates, and what impact do you think something like this can make? Because like you are saying, there are several best practices that India itself has.
That's true. From my side, I should say I don't have too much exposure to Diksha. I'm more from the higher education side. I've only heard about Diksha from many people. I think it's a fantastic platform. It's made for teachers, I believe, for creating content suitable for students in grades 1 to 12. It's worked fantastically well during the pandemic, particularly during the pandemic. So many schools survived using Diksha. So I think it's a fantastic platform. So are SWAYAM and NPTEL, and those are also very nice platforms for people to use as well. So I think as a country, we've built 2 or 3 platforms aimed at K-12 and higher education, and all of these are available for anybody to use today.
What were some of the innovations that were showcased that have been developed by research parks and educational institutions?
So inside IITM Research Park, there are quite a few edtech companies. There are companies that work on creating AR, VR, XR type solutions. There were quite a few of them that were shown. There are companies that work closely with professors, given their proximity to IITM, to convert the knowledge that professors have into viable products for virtual labs, for instance. I know companies of that nature. So I think there is a long distance to go as far as how to bring in labs and hands-on into the digital world. In my opinion, that's still not a solved problem. That's why I keep saying innovators, startups, new companies need to come into this picture and contribute.
And towards the end, your thoughts on the need to make tech-enabled learning available in local languages as well?
So that's the real final frontier. I think if you take a country like India, English is the gateway for April.
Right, so that was Professor Thangaraj joining us from Chennai, sharing his views on tech-enabled education. A seminar has started, and this is the eve of the 2-day education working group meeting. We leave it at that. Thank you, Mr. Thangaraj, for speaking to us from Chennai. G20 delegates enjoyed a cultural evening in Chennai. Take a look. The second and final day of the first G20 International Financial Architecture Working Group meeting in Chandigarh discussed managing global debt vulnerabilities, the global financial safety net, and strengthening financial resilience through sustainable capital flows with the aim of addressing multiple challenges faced by vulnerable countries. Anup Mathai, advisor in the Ministry of Finance, addressed a press conference on the concluding day of the first G20 International Financial Architecture Working Group meeting in Chandigarh. This is what she said on the issues discussed in the meeting.
The subjects that were discussed over the last few days were how to strengthen multilateral development banks and how to address challenges associated with the G20 Common Framework for Debt Treatments, which is a previous achievement of the G20 for helping the very poor countries with their debt. This has become, continues to be an important agenda as the debt situation worsens. Now, the focus of this group in 2023 is to support global action for enhancing financing for development, while at the same time strengthening international financial institutions to support vulnerable countries to deal with challenges like pandemics and climate change that are not confined within national boundaries but go beyond boundaries.
Ms. Mathai also spoke on the deliverables from the forthcoming meetings of G20.
There will be more meetings of this group, and after this, the next the discussions of this meeting will inform the meeting of ministers and central bank governors, which will take place in Bengaluru on 24th and 25th February. So that is the next item on the G20 calendar for the finance track of the G20 calendar.
DD India's correspondent Amritpal Singh caught up with foreign G20 delegates participating in the International Financial Architecture Working Group meeting in Chandigarh on the takeaways from the deliberations over 2 days. Listen in.
I think it's important to look at, and we've spent a lot of time in the last 2 days talking about this. International financial architecture is about delivering for citizens, delivering for people. Unless we have the international financial architecture that can deliver increases in standard of living, increases in our ability to adapt to the green transition. In terms of what these deliberations have focused, it's really where policy is actually implemented. It's about making sure that we have the tools and mechanisms to implement what we've agreed and what countries have committed to.
A real sense of concern about particularly those countries where OFC who can access concessional finance through the Poverty Reduction and Growth Trust, which is an indication of some 73 countries who are the weakest and most vulnerable. I mean, right now we know, for example, that low-income countries are paying over 20% of their export earnings into external debt servicing. That's an enormous number. And what we see in the discussions is that countries are acknowledging that this is a real weakness of the system and that more needs to be done for them. But what I do see is that there is increasing openness and acceptance of a really concerning environment that countries have the capability and the will to address.
Strengthening international financial architecture is a very relevant topic under this quite challenging situation. And especially for this year, the general review of quarter is scheduled. And also IMF launched a new program, which is RST, Resilience Sustainable Trust Fund. And also it's going to planning to strengthen the PRGT program. So the G20 country could cooperate and strengthen on those fronts.
It was a fantastic show of Indian culture, not just from around this region, but across the country. It was incredible welcome. The light show was magnificent, and I think every single delegate here has felt incredibly loved and incredibly welcomed by the welcome that we've had here in Chandigarh.
The two-day Science 20 inception meeting concluded in Puducherry. India's 100-page proposal for pursuit of disruptive science was welcomed by overseas delegates. Delegates attending the inception meeting of Science 20 in Puducherry were treated to an evening of traditional music and dance performances. G20 delegates in Chandigarh were enthralled by Indian culture, making them put on their dancing shoes. We leave you with those visuals. Thanks for watching. Namaskar. Can growth and fiscal consolidation goals be met at the same time?
The government will really be also required to do a very balancing act, if one can say, to continue on to the path of the fiscal prudence. We should maintain the momentum of public capex, which is very important. What we would like to see in the budget to give that leeway for the common man to deal with some amount of inflation that we have seen.
What does India Inc. expect in terms of policy impetus from the budget for the manufacturing sector?
Continue on the path of ease of doing business and also on the cost of doing business.
What interventions would you suggest for the budget in this area of public health?
The digital healthcare side, as I mentioned, very, very important focus, strong on the rural and the district levels in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities.
चेक जाना पड़ेगा। अरे गेम छोड़ के 1 महीना हो गया कंप्लेंट किए हुए, बैंक रिफंड ही नहीं कर रहा है। कंप्लेंट करनी है।
अरे बैठिए बैठिए यहीं से कर लीजिए आरबीआई के ऑम्बुड्समैन को।
कैसे?
आरबीआई अधिकृत बैंक, एनबीएफसी या डिजिटल लेन देन के जितने भी प्लेटफॉर्म्स हैं, उनकी शिकायत आप कर सकते हैं घर बैठे बैठे आरबीआई के सीएमएस पोर्टल पर। ये हो गया चेकमेट। कंप्लेंट करेंगे क्या? आरबीआई कहता है
जानकार बनिए, सतर्क रहिए।
Can growth and fiscal consolidation goals be met at the same time?
The government will really be also required to do a very balancing act, if one can say, to continue on to the path of the fiscal prudence. We should maintain the momentum of public capex, which is very important. What we would like to see in the budget to give that leeway for the common man to deal with some amount of inflation that we have seen.
What does India Inc. expect in terms of policy impetus from the budget for the manufacturing sector?
Continue on the path of ease of doing business and also on the cost of doing business.
What interventions would you suggest for the budget in this area of public health?
The digital healthcare side, as I mentioned, very, very important focus, strong on the rural and the district levels in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities.
Get in-depth analysis of the important news of the day. Spotlight on day's newsmakers. Expert comments to dissect the news. Get the finer points of the matter. Watch Dateline 5 p.m. on weekdays on DD India.
Let's talk a little bit about your role as a minister. Science and technology obviously comes very naturally to you. There's nothing that you need to prepare on. So how have you aligned yourself to understanding the various ministries, and how do you present and prepare yourself for Parliament?
Till the 27th of May 2014, that was my first day